Hello. It's streaming time again. Really should check my hair before I start streaming. This is embarrassing. It's gonna make sure all the technical ducks are in a row. I think they are. This should really be a little bit louder, I guess. Can probably fix that. It's a nice tradition to start these streams with me just fighting the tech for... Sorry if I made anyone deaf there. That should be a lot better, I think. I don't have my fancy audio setup since I haven't actually moved my full-sized computer to my office yet. With any luck, I can get all this aligned. I think we're ready to go. So, dev tools, yes. And like that, I get the infinity effect. Let's program. So I figured we'll do a little special thing today. That's going to be looking at the game I made at Microjam, which is the sausage racing game. You remember when I said we were going to start programming? I wasn't telling the truth. I was going to juggle around my windows some more. With any luck, I'll get the chat up on the screen so I can actually see what you guys are talking about. But anyway, I figured we'd take a look at the game I made at Microjam, which is a physics-based sausage racing game. One of those, you know. It looks a little bit like this. Hopefully the sound is off, or the music is off in the game. We'll see. That does indeed sound like it's off. So you can add multiple sausages in, and then it's really hard to race on your own. This is what it looks like, and you can go backwards and the game will tell you, no, don't do that. If you go off the track, it will slow you down. I can see that one of my little debug things is still in there. Can you see the little dot that's ahead of the player, like right here? That's not supposed to be there. And it has fancy collision physics and all of that stuff. Very mature. This chat really isn't working. I wonder why. Oh, here we go. So, first of all, why? Let's just turn that thing off. So yeah, this is running on Box2D. And I'll show you what it looks like behind the scenes. So if I do the debug render and start the race, actually, let's do, no, not that one. This one. See, this has a tendency to sort of break the game into 1,000 pieces, but no, this works. So the sausage is made up of these, they're not quite pills, but sort of, I'm sorry the camera is like oscillating. That's what happens when it zooms in this much. It's made out of like, I guess it's like pills, but it's just half a pill. So it's like, so it's a little bit like a circle like this, and then a rectangle or a square, something like that. It's like attached to it. So it's exactly the same width. So there's nothing sticking out of the square on either side. And that's like each segment of the sausage, except for the last segment, which is actually a circle and somewhat straighter rectangle inside, and then another circle on the end. I am so abysmal at drawing today. Something like that. It gives you, this is what you'd call like a pill in physics lingo. It's a really useful shape because it's it doesn't have any sharp edges, but it's kind of like a rectangle. So each of these segments is one of those. I think this is the last one, so that's the double one. And they are all overlapping. In between them, there are joints that are holding the pieces together. So we can probably... I wonder if I can just disable the joints. Capsule is also a common word. Thank you, Sven. Should ban you. I don't want to ban you. Can I give you... You have superpowers now, Sven. Use them wisely. Go away. So either way, all of these pills are attached with a joint that goes to the next one, and the next pill is like... How do I make it transparent selection? That's what I want. So the next pill is like right here, meaning that if it rotates, which I can't do because this is paint and it's super crap, even if that piece like turns, it will still have... I can probably do that. So even if this is turned 90 degrees, it will still have like a soft corner here. So this game was made in... I started Friday and it ended Sunday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So around about 48 hours. And that's including sleeping and eating in between. But either way, all of these are attached with a joint. And it's a special kind of joint. It is what Box2D likes to call a revolute joint, which means that it can spin, but it can't move in any, like the relative distance is always the same. So they can, the parts can move in relation to each other, but they can never like rotationally move, but they can never get farther or closer together. And these joints also have something called like a motor on them, and also upper and lower angles. You can set a limit. So say you have a door, you'd set the limit so the door can only open like a set amount, because then it would stop, or whatever you're making. And then I'm using the motor on the joint to actually try and straighten it. I'll show you. I think I have all the stuff set up to actually show you how it works. Korv, if you didn't know, is sausage in Swedish. I thought I was being super funny when I named everything that. So physics, joint, limit. This sets how far the joints can move before they max out. So this, you can see that it bends a lot more aggressively now, and you can kind of see the different parts a little bit more. And then there's the speed that it uses to like try and straighten itself again, and how powerful it is when trying to do that. Some of these actually require resetting the game for them to be applied. Actually, probably go in, steer. Put a little range on this guy. The thing I'm using to tweak the variables is It's a tool I made myself. Actually increase the range of this to a full revolution. That'll be fun. So you can pull some more knobs, see what happens. Hey Decotav34, welcome to the stream. Just gonna make sure everything's okay, looks okay. So we'll do that, and then we'll start the race, and then we'll enable the debug render. And now we can hopefully pull on these a little bit more. So the joint limit, I can set that to be full rotation. That won't actually apply until I reset the game, I think. Yeah, so now the sausage is super swingy. And it kind of straightens itself. If I just leave it, it will go straight. So if I decrease the speed of the joints to like nothing, you can see that it, like if I leave it in a crooked state, it will stay that way. And this, I think this is applied at runtime, yeah, so I can actually make it go faster. And all of this took like a couple of hours of just tweaking. I didn't even have, like, it didn't have graphics, it didn't have anything. It's just like a sausage in empty space. And for the longest time, so the way the steering works is that it's actually colliding with itself there. That's why it's making sounds. So if we restart to get the settings back to what they should be, the way the steering of the sausage works is a little bit special too. Can't remember to change that before I start. So on this guy right here, the actual movement is a force that's applied to the frontmost part of the sausage. So you can see that it's kind of, that part is kind of leading. It tricks you a little bit because the camera's focusing on the center, like either this one or that one, I can't remember. No, it's actually focusing on the center point of the sausage. That's why the camera is like oscillating in that annoying way. But if I press like right now, it will pull on this or push or whatever. It will apply a force to this part and it will make it go sideways. So you can kind of tell, like if I put it on the finish line, it will go straight along the finish line until it goes straight. It feels a little bit funky at first because also the steering happens to be absolute, which is this like weird way of doing things. If I want to go, even if I'm facing this way, if I want to go up, I press the up key and it will apply a force that direction. If I want to go left, it will just pull me around, and this is me pressing right and then down, and if I want to go up, it will do this. It has a little funky drawback, which means that if I'm perfectly aligned up and press down, it will just push me on this part downwards, meaning I'll go kind of straight backwards, which is a little bit weird. But that's just happens to be kind of practical to control it that way. And yeah, for the longest time, I was saying it was just like this sausage in empty space that was driving around. And I had this problem because of the way the controls work, that if you just drive in a straight line, and this still happens a little bit, the sausage kind of starts to oscillate. Like if you get this little whip in the turn, that would just like get stronger and stronger and stronger until it like made you flip around, and then you had to start all over again. And it looked hilarious. Really, it's a really satisfying kind of motion, but for actual racing, it's not really feasible because you couldn't really drive in a straight line at all. It would just make you spin out. And in the end, it was a combination of me adding like the auto straighten thing, because that actually helps a little bit with that. Maybe if I turn it off, you can see what happens. Yeah, here we go. So like any movement that's still like in the sausage will just stay there. Now there's not enough of a straight line for me to drive in to make it get really bad, but you can sort of see what it would do. And one day I'll put in like a reset function for these properties. But adding the auto straighten on the sausage really helps with that. And then just a tiny little bit of drag on all the parts, like just having them slow down over time also helped a lot with that. I can kind of still get the oscillating going even with the default settings, but that's not, I don't mind that. This just looks fun. Is the game going to have AI or be multiplayer? It is multiplayer right now, but it's only local multiplayer because with Game Jam, there's no real time to do anything else. What else should I say? But yeah, like using a physics engine like this is always like a back and forth thing because it gives you a lot of stuff for free, but also you gotta play by its rules. But once you have it all set up, it's pretty cool because you can be like, okay, I want like a whole bunch of players in here. And everything will just work. Like the collisions between the players is just gonna be perfectly fine. Didn't spend all that much time making the sound effects work nicely, even though the sound effects themselves are nice, but you can sort of get yourself in there. And the actual rendering of the sausages just uses, OpenFL has a thing to render lines, like really big fat lines as well. So behind the scenes it will make like a polygonal shape out of this, so it's not using OpenGL lines or anything, but this is just a big fat line that goes along the length of the sausage, and I can tweak the size of that if I want to. And then, as you can probably tell, these little tails at the start and end of the sausage are just little shapes I put in there. So this doesn't really affect the actual width of the sausage, it's just the rendering. So that's how that works. And the reason I decided to do a racing game was me and Nicholas were on the train over talking about what games we could make, and somehow we got to talking about sausage games, and I realized I'd never made a racing game before, so maybe I should make a racing game. And then the idea struck us, or me, or him, or whoever, about like the way a racing game would have different kinds of cars. My sausage racing game would have different kinds of sausages. So like a chorizo would have these properties, and a kielbasa would have other kinds of properties, and like a bratwurst would be this. And I never got around to actually adding different types of sausages. It's just different colors to be able to tell the players apart. But I had never made a racing game before, so that was an interesting challenge, because most of the stuff is just fairly standard physics game setup, like create the world, create the little player, apply forces to him, that type of thing. But then comes the problem of detecting like who's winning, who's in the lead. Are they on the track? Are they off the track? What is the track? Who am I? Who are you? Those types of questions, which are harder, as it turns out. You want to see a 3D version of this? I will not be making a 3D version of this, but you have my blessing if you want to try. I did some research on Twitter, mostly to find like the stupidest name I could. Gran Chorizo is pretty damn stupid. And I was informed that some guy who follows me on Twitter actually made like an advertising, like an advert game for some German sausage manufacturer in the 90s. That was a racing game. But unfortunately, it's a branded racing game with normal cars. It's just like sausage maker racing, and it has nothing to do with sausages whatsoever. Very, very disappointing. Yeah, I can see the people in the chat found the little debug tool I'm using. And if you found the GitHub repository, yes, you did. You can also see that I half started making a new and improved version of it, but the old version should work just fine. You'll have to figure out how to set it up yourself, though. What was I saying? Yeah, I had the problem of detecting on where the players are, and even defining the track is a little bit of a problem. So the way I decided to do it, like there are several ways of solving this. Like the math way of solving it is to just define like a Bezier curve, which you remember from last week. That is the track, and then use that to generate the actual graphics for the track, and that will give you access to, like, you'll have like perfect geometric knowledge of what the track is, and then you can like raycast or whatever to that spline that you have and figure out where the player is. That's not what I did, because I was at a game jam and I had no time and I had not done anything like that before. So I did it in a kind of funky way. See if I can open this guy. Wow, Arc Games, I'm sorry. You can always send me an email if you're doing something like that, and I'll try and help you, or send you a little bit snippets of how stuff works. Anyway, let me set this to be, so you can see what I'm doing. So this is the track. This is Illustrator, vector graphics software. Here, this little document has a bunch of layers. Where's my layers thing? First, it's, what the hell is this? Apparently something that's not needed. This is just cosmetic. That one's also cosmetic. So what I did was I made a path. That's just a track. This is just a fat path. You can see if we just like turn down the width of it a little bit. This is what defined the track for me, and this is a Bezier curve. You can see like the telltale handles on these. You see these guys here. I don't know if they show up on stream because they're so small, but so this is a Bezier curve. Although I didn't really want to get into exporting this out from Illustrator as like a curve and then parsing that and getting into that. That seemed just like a ton of work. So what I did was I made this, like this is like the basic visual version of it. And then I used, Illustrator has a feature that will let you place objects along a path. Like this. So I made a circle, could be any shape really, just circle happened to be nice, and I used that tool to place them along the path. And this also means that they are, wherever the path starts, I don't even know, they will be in order along the path, like nicely in order in the document. And then, if I get back to my code, this, when I save this file, I'll get this SVG file. Whoops. And this is just graphics, 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 all the way down until we get to the layer that I named nodes here. This actually comes across in the SVG file. And SVG is like XML, basically. So I can parse this with, I mean, I am parsing it already to render it, but I can parse it as just like a normal data file, which is what I did. And I find this thing called nodes. And all of these circles are the ones that are placed here. So I can find all of these, and I save all of these coordinates because they are in like the track coordinate space. I don't care about the color, I don't care about their radius, I just care about their position. And then I remove these from the XML file and actually remove some other stuff too, like any hidden layers, or like my renderer doesn't understand the concept of hidden layers, it would just render everything, which is sometimes useful. It depends, but I made it so that I like pre-process it and remove some other stuff that I don't need, that I still want to keep around in the SVG file. See here. So this is the actual code that does this. So it will get the XML file. And this is just a little offset I'm using to get it like kind of sort of centered. And then it will loop over the XML files, just completely unrelated to the XML. It will loop over all the nodes in the XML until it finds the where is it? The thing called nodes. By the way, every circle it finds, it will add to this little track node list. It will just save the X position and the Y position, and then if it found one of these, or it's or if the layer is hidden, it will remove that particular node. What that gives me is this list of positions that are along the track, which is really what I need to be able to check how far along the track you are. And then I use that for a ton of things. So when I spawn the player, I just save these in a list, and then when it's time to spawn the player player class will just look at, okay, what's the node that I'm closest to right now when I start, and then it will, as I parse these nodes, I remember whatever the next node is because they are in order. And so I parse them, like, let's say, like, I don't even know. This one happens to be white, but that's just so I know kind of sort of where the start is. That doesn't really do anything differently. So let's say this is the starting node. It will go along the track like this, blah, 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 for everything. And then we'll end up at the last node. And when it's done with that, it will find the first node again, and then we'll link these two together. So it's one continuous loop of nodes. Every node is pointing to the next node. Which means that if I find the node that you are closest to, I will know where you are on the track. And then from that, I will know where you need to go next. So if we enable this. So now every node has like a set radius that you need to be within for it to consider you to be like at that node. So when I start here, it will find a node that's probably here somewhere, but I'm so close to it that I will immediately snap over to the next node, to the next node, and to the next node. So this is the first one that's like actually outside of my range. As I approach that, it will just pop away all the time. If I reset and add another player, you can probably see it a little bit better. So now you can see I'm constantly like chasing a node that's a little bit ahead of me. So this is really useful for many things. At first I was going to do some kind of like raycast testing polygon intersection against like the track graphics or something to figure out if I was on the track or not. But what I figured out is because I have a series of circles placed along the track, I can just find the nearest circle to me right now, which might be, I don't know, here or somewhere. And then I can calculate how far from that circle I am. And that will let me know if I'm kind of sort of on the track. So just like these pink circles kind of cover the track, they're a little bit bulgy, but if I am close enough to any of these circles, I will be on the track. If I'm farther away, I will be off the track. So that gives me this nice little shortcut of figuring out if I'm on the track or not. So if player 1 was in first, then turned around for a bit and went behind player 2, it would still detect player 1 as first place. No. Because it knows where the next, knows how far along the track you are, but it also looks at the current, like your next node that is like drawing the line to is different from the way it figures out your position. So first of all, it looks at what lap you're at. Right now the game's set to only be 1 lap, so both of these players will have 0 laps. And then it looks at the index of like how many nodes have the player touched since they started this lap. So if the red player goes ahead and then goes back a little bit, it actually doesn't lose its lead. Oh, it's because, yeah, it is. You are right. It's messed up. So it's whoever gets to the next node first. Which means that, yeah, if you actually get in first and then go back. No, it does deal with that. That was I was thinking that it would do that. So it's when it's finding out who's in the lead, it's just looking at the nearest node, and it kind of knows where that is along the track, and that will give you the position you're in. And if you're at the same node, it will just look at your distance to that node, I think. Either way, it ended up working great for like a game jam thing. And even if you can do the, maybe if you do it this way, like if you go far ahead and then go back, it might break. Yeah. Doesn't really matter though, because it's just like a visual thing of who's in the lead, but that is indeed a bug. If you're like racing properly, it works great. And there's no, as far as I can think of, I don't think there's any way to exploit that to win, because you need to touch your starting node for it to be counted as a lap. And then when you're at the finishing lap, there is a set, because that's kind of a problem I had of figuring out exactly where because all of this collision stuff is based on circles. So if I went like, okay, this is the goal circle, the goal line would be this edge down here, which is a really weird, it's not really, you think of them as straight, right? So I actually made it so that once you're on the last lap and you go across a specific Y coordinate, it will count you as in the goal. Hello, Vinny. Welcome to the stream. So that's kind of a little, like, quick overview of how that game fits together. Did I do any meaningful changes to this? Not really. You can get this on my itch.io page, which I can paste into the chat for you. You could probably clone say it points out that it's not always accurate, this in the lead detection, and it could be. It's just one thing that I didn't think of. I just need to find. So what it's looking at is how many nodes you have touched, and then, or first it's looking at what lap you're at, and then how many nodes you've touched since you started your last lap, and then after that it is the distance to the next node. So if I instead made it look at what node you are closest to right now, which is a little bit more work, but not that much, it would actually deal with that as well. And sometimes it's also a little bit vague, like who is in the lead. Like if you're in a curve and one player is technically, it's debatable sometimes when you're like neck and neck. So some games just wait for a little bit for updating. So if you're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, there's no sense in just having the numbers update so quick, or you only check every so often who's in the lead. Like you could check twice a second or 3 times a second and not continuously. That will also smooth it out a little bit. Do you want to see something more about this game, or should we go back to our friends, the asteroids? I don't really need that program running. I'm going to wait for the chat for a little bit. I don't think anyone's going to say anything, but you never know. Well, if no one's protesting, let's go back to the thing. Slicer. I wonder if I can not be incredibly silly and try to use... It's really practical to have 2 screens when you're streaming. I don't, which gets a little bit hard to deal with sometimes. So let's get back to the slicer, which is code name for collapse. I can't really... Let me see what we actually did on this last week. Removed unused imports, that's not very interesting. Disallowed negative scores, right. So yeah, before you could go, you get like a -1,000 score, and that would just make it really hard to catch up if you ever got in trouble. So we fixed that, removed Clipper, old library that we weren't using, no sense in having that around. And then we made the score. I can swear we did more stuff. Apparently not. So we added the score lines that would make it easier to see who actually got the points, which I'm really excited about because they look kind of cool. So if I can resize everything a little bit, these famous score lines look a little bit like this. Drill that guy. Drill that guy. Into the pit with you. Here it comes. It's pretty sweet. So now, I think we're gonna dress that up a little bit more. And possibly make it look different if it's like a negative score or a bad score. I don't think we have to do that, but maybe. So the first time, the first thing I want to do is I want to add that like a circle effect to the player as well when you score. Is the text font you use in Collapse rendered from SVG files? Well, if so, how would you dynamically update it? It's actually not rendered from an SVG file. It is using the normal OpenFL font rendering. That's the way that works. So this is probably going to be pretty quick. So when a score line ends, I have this nice little utility class that will spawn circles in places. Curve end. Let's just use that. What am I drinking? I am drinking this thing. Colors, let's do it the player color, I guess. It should be the same as the color of this thing. Clonce making a fool of himself or herself in the chat. I appreciate that. So we can put these into the thing. It will go blorp. Boop. That's way too big though. Needs to be. Needs to be a little bit bigger. We got visitors at the office, if you're wondering what's going on in the background. Which is like the good and the bad part of having an office. People actually come here, as opposed to my apartment where people rarely come and visit. So one thing that happens with this little circle effect, it's kind of problematic, is that it stays behind. Like if I'm going full blast. It's either I make it follow the player or I just make it faster. What if I could make it faster? Did I put in? New effect circle. I wonder if I should make the duration of it be relative to the scale. Maybe that could be something. We'll see. We'll try that. I don't know why I'm actually trying to get a good score. I should just put any old thing in there. Wow, that's way fast. Let's just take the time and put the duration as an argument. Might as well. Delay, duration, points to. Starving Emo Kid is asking if this is an asteroid mining simulator. I think it is. I mean, I don't want to put labels on things, but that might be what it is. I'm gonna remember to put all of these things in the correct place. Scale's fine, duration or delay, we don't want any, and then maybe 0.1 here. Would it not be nice to control the drill line like you could turn it? Arc Games is asking. I suppose that could be interesting. That would also be a technological challenge because it's cutting things in a straight line is fairly straightforward. Having bendy cuts can get really complicated. And I sort of like the simplicity of just having it be straight lines. Okay, here we go. Showtime. That kind of works, doesn't it? A little bit too fast. It's not going to be a very much longer stream today, unfortunately, because I have some other stuff I'm going to need to deal with today, but I'll keep going for a little bit more. 550,000. I can't help it. I got to take the big asteroids. That's just the way this game works. Now it's kind of missing a sound when you get the little bloop. Make one of those one day. It's like this funny, it's not really a drawback, but it's just like as you keep polishing a game and making it nicer. That's my phone. All the stuff or the parts that aren't as nice just look a lot worse, which is this bizarre. I gotta take this real quick. I was too slow. I didn't have time to take it. This is the thing I had to deal with that's calling me, which is a person who has a name. There we go. Sorry about that. This is kind of this is a good. What are the controls for this game? Now we're getting to something that's like, it's going to be really hard to test again. Like if this feels good with 2 players. It's also kind of funny when you manage to get eaten by the black hole. That it just goes back into the hole and gives you points. Now, I'm not entirely sure what I want to do with negative scores. Like if I want to... That's the reset sound right there. The very discrete reset sound. Shove this guy in here. Whoop! Very nice. I'm happy with that. So what were you saying in the chat? Oh, you didn't mean bend the drill, but just change the angle of the line. Maybe. I kind of like the perpendicular drill too, because it's like this. Okay, you can't always make like the perfect cut. Sometimes you got to be like, okay, do I want to just cut here and be done with it, or do I want to like spend more time to set it up? Which is kind of like that. So this is effect circle on player as score line finishes. But I can see your point with the 90 degrees, but I do like it the way it is. One thing that's a little bit annoying is when you do the thing that I will show you now. So it's like I want to cut like along here. So I put myself here and I realize, okay, that's not really where I wanted to go. And I have to keep reattaching to get the angle correct. That's a little bit annoying because I sort of have to hold it a little bit to see first. So maybe I could do like a preview thing. Like if you drill, it will go along this axis or something. But in another way, maybe that's just not necessary. Get this asteroid. How much is that? 660,000. Yeah, it's really missing a sound when it goes back to you. This is like the typical, like I can't make a good cut here at all. Maybe here. Go into the thing. Excellent. You know what, guys? I think this might be me ending the stream because I don't think I'll have time to do anything more of actual value before my friend arrives, and I want to talk to him a little bit. And he also has parts for my arcade cabinet, which I might show you one day when it's in better condition than it is right now. So unless the chat has anything more they want to make known, I think this will be the end of this stream, and hopefully by next week or the week after that, I will actually have my proper streaming setup. I really hope, because it's annoying to work from my laptop all the time, because we have these big windows here, and well, you can see the car passing out, so that's the street. which is awesome. Like, that's really cool. But that also means that there are people walking right outside the window here, and I don't want to put like a big expensive computer right by the window for someone to be tempted by, because that would be very annoying to lose my computer. So we're waiting for bars for the windows here, and once that's done, I'll bring my computer here and set that up. Do I have a secret project, main project these days? Yes, I do. Yeah, I do have something I do when I'm not streaming. These past few weeks, it's mostly been like moving office type of stuff. Like today, I changed all the light bulbs in the office, or most of them, because we didn't buy enough. We miscounted. But stuff like that the past few weeks. But other than that, it is me programming on my new thing, which is going to be, I think it's going to be a little bit smaller than Rimkapsel, but we'll see. I thought Rimkapsel was going to be small too, and in some ways it is. In some other ways, it still took me like 1.5 years to get done. So these things kind of takes time. I'm sharing my office with some other people who do other things, like bloggers and video makers and another programmer and project manager. They do cool stuff, but not, which is also really nice. Thank you so much for hanging out today, and I'll see you guys next week.